Good morning. Today is September 13th, 2018. It's the second stakeholder meeting for the full-day kindergarten school facilities grant program. Before I get started, our office has hired a new team to handle this program, so I want to introduce them before we go through the agenda. I'll bring them up. The supervisor of this team, and their names and numbers will be on our website for context if you have any questions about the program following this meeting. We have Joshua Potter. He's the new supervisor of our team. You might remember him from our facility hardship team as a project manager. Alexandra Ruiloba is one of our analysts for the team, and Lindsay Gordon. So they'll be assisting you with anything you need for our program. So again, if you need their contact information, they will be on our website shortly. All right. Thank you, guys. So again, thank you. We are down here in Van Nuys. I appreciate you guys coming today. Just a little bit of format. We are going to walk through, this meeting is a webcast, not live, but we will record it for the record so that people that aren't here can catch up on the information. Brian and I will present kind of an overview of what we did last meeting, the full item. We'll do it a little bit abbreviated this time since we already did it once, but just kind of a recap for those that weren't able to watch that already. We're going to go over some of the questions we got at the last meeting and some of the emails we received from stakeholders. We got a lot of good feedback, some items we hadn't considered, so we've incorporated that into this item, so we'll go through those. We did bring back some tiebreaker options to talk about if anybody has any concerns about those or additional considerations that we hadn't thought about. And then we'll talk about a little about next steps. We'll go through any questions you have of what we've done so far, and we'll go forward from there. All right? So just to recap, Assembly Bill 1808 added Education Code Section 17375. That Assembly Bill was signed by the governor back on June 27th, 2018. And what that did was create this full-day kindergarten facilities grant program. As part of the governor's budget for 2018-2019, $100 million was provided for this program, of which $2.5 million is being used for administrative costs to run the program. This program is designed to allow school districts to construct new classrooms for full-day kindergarten or retrofit existing classrooms that don't meet Title V requirements currently, or they need to meet them. Full-day kindergarten is defined in statute as 4 hours or longer, exclusive of recess. So going through the item, this is on page 5 of the agenda. Staff's interpretation of the statutes is that any school district can apply for this program. In the school facility program, there are specific definitions for COEs and CDE to apply on behalf of school districts. That's not an option in this program. Neither are private charter schools. School districts can apply on behalf of charter schools, though, in their area. Yeah, I should have kept it anyway. Yeah. What we propose going forward, we're trying to move the money fast. This is cash available from the general fund. It is available today to start giving out. So we're trying to get this program going quickly. So we're proposing initial round, assuming the regulations get approved by the board in October and we can move them that quickly, that beginning January 2nd through January 31st, we'd start accepting applications for the first round. We just did a 1/3, 2/3 split for the first round, figuring people aren't going to be as ready. We are proposing $37.5 million be set aside for the first round. Start funding projects. If any of that's left over, we'd roll it over into the second round. Anyone not funded in the first round is welcome to apply in the second round if we get too many applications. The second round, we are proposing to do the remaining balance of $60 million and any carryover for the first round. If we don't expend all money by the end of the second round, then we're going to propose to the board that they keep the round open for 18 months, and we'll just keep funding down the list as money comes available. We have 3 years to get rid of all the money, so if we need a third round, we'll do a third round sometime in 2020-ish or so. So the program itself, it's pretty simple criteria. You're on a site where you have existing kindergarten pupils, but you don't have the facilities to provide full-day kindergarten. So maybe you run 2 half-day kindergartens in 1 kindergarten classroom. We would give you enough money to build another classroom to house half those kids, or retrofit an existing classroom. Let's say you have a first-grade classroom on campus. It's not designed for kindergartners. This program allows the retrofit of that classroom to make it kindergarten compatible. We have kind of an illustration of that on page 7 of the current item. And in the particular example we've shown there, You're running two classrooms with AM and PM kindergartners in both classrooms, so 100 kids in 2 classrooms. The state loading standards is 25 pupils per classroom. So if you wanted a full day, you would need 2 more classrooms. So with this full day kindergarten project, we would allow you to build 2 brand new kindergarten classrooms or retrofit 2 classrooms to satisfy that. So that at the end of your project, you're running 4 full day kindergarten classrooms. Let's see. For this program, and I'm on page 9, there is a match requirement to this program. For new construction projects, it's 50% split by the state, 50% by the district. For retrofit projects, it'll be 60% for the state, 40% for the district. Very similar to the school facility program. There is a financial hardship component. If you cannot afford as a district your local matching share, you can apply for financial hardship where the state can cover up to 100% of your share. If you're familiar with the school facility program, it'll run exactly like that program. You need to meet the same qualifications, and then we do a review of finances to see what kind of district contribution you contribute to the project. Continue on. We're envisioning 2 different application types, and it doesn't matter if you're financial hardship or non-financial hardship. You can do either one of these options. The first one assumes that you have DSA approved plans. So I'm at the bottom of page 9. If you have DSA approved plans, you're ready to move quickly. We envision you being able to reimburse any projects with contracts after the signing of the bill, June 27th. You would submit an application for us with those full DSA approved plans. At a future board, the board would provide a cash-funded apportionment for your project. We would send you a grant agreement for the project, and once you're able to certify that you have binding contracts for completion of the project, we'll release your funds to you. Really quick, we're going to put a requirement on there too that you request to release the funds within 180 days. Once you release the funds, you continue to build your project, and you'd have an expenditure reporting requirement. It should be a one-time reporting requirement, not an annual like in the SFP. So we'll have a form for that also. Knowing that we're moving fast, a lot of people may not have seen this program coming. The second option is more of a phased approach for your project where you don't have DSA approved plans. You may not have any plans at all, may not even have a site identified or the land that you're going to put it on. So this is on page 10. There's a chart in the middle there to kind of explain the phased approach. You would use the exact same application form for us to apply, but you just would leave blank the parts where your DSA letter is signed off. You would leave those dates blank, and there'll be future certifications. We would still take you to apportionment at a future board, and then we would set aside that cash for you. In this case, when you don't have plans or site identified, we'll set aside the cash for 1 year for you to complete the entire process. Once the board approves your apportionment, we will send you a grant agreement for the design funding. If you're requesting site acquisition funding, we will release the grant we typically call Site Other. It's the 2% add-on that we use for appraisals, escrow fees, let you do all your preliminary testings with that 2% grant. We will release that automatically as soon as you get the grant agreement back to us so that you can start identifying your site and designing your plans and moving forward. Once you've entered escrow for your project, we will send you a grant agreement for the site acquisition part of it. You'll return that to us, and we'll release the rest of the proceeds so you can continue on with the purchase of your property. And continue along on those steps. You'll continue to go on through the design, get your DSA plan approval, and then when you're ready for it, you will submit, you'll go to contract, and you'll submit your final fund release request, and we'll release the remainder of your balance of funds to you. You don't have to do phased funding. If you don't request the separate site acquisition early, the district can afford to cover it on their own until then. When you request your construction fund release on the back end, we'll just release everything at once. So you're not forced to do the separate site release if you don't need it. And then once again, after those funds are released, you'll have an expenditure report upon completion of the project. The application process, we're trying to keep it simple. A lot of self-certifications on the beginning end, knowing that you might not have a site identified. The per pupil grant funding is the same as in SFP. We take the same loading standards, 25, and multiply it by those same pupil grants. You're going to indicate on the form whether you want new construction or you're going to do a retrofit project. We are going to ask copies of your site maps and a narrative. We want to know what you do right now on that campus with your kindergarten classrooms. Are you running half day? Are they not in kindergarten classrooms? Whatever the case may be. What is your proposed project and the outcome after that? Ideally, it matches that chart earlier on where you're telling us you have 2 half-day kindergartens in one classroom and you intend to build a new one, and then afterwards you're going to have 2 full-day kindergartens. So it should be relatively simple, but we like an idea of what you're doing. We want to see a site map of your campus, identify all the buildings on there so we can see where the kindergarten classrooms are or the lack of kindergartens are on that site map. Some kind of enrollment documentation to match your seabeds. Again, like we talked before, the program is designed to house existing kindergarten classrooms. So this is not for growth. Not projected 5-year enrollment like in the SFP. You're actually housing kids that already exist on that campus. So we want to know what your enrollment is right now for that campus. If the district already has a certification at the school board level that you're going to be running full-day kindergarten pursuant to education code, we'll ask for a copy of that certification. If you're only intending to do full-day kindergarten if you get funding from us, then you can certify that you'll provide it at the end of the project. So you don't have to do that early and commit to it at the school board level that you're going to do full-day kindergarten if you're waiting to see if we're getting funding from us. And then lastly, with that application, if you like financial hardship funding, you'll submit a request, check a box on there on the form, and then our financial hardship team will reach out to you when we're ready to process the application. If you're requesting site acquisition, you'll base your amount off a preliminary appraisal that you have. After you actually do your full appraisal, our thought is you're going to be adding on to an existing campus for site acquisition. You're buying the house next door so you can expand a little bit to drop that last classroom on. We're not allowing a huge site purchase for this project. It's not a new school project, so we expect small sites. But let's say it's a house, we don't expect you to do a full appraisal where you're going in there and into the house and evaluating things for your appraisal. Just preliminary appraisals, rough estimates of what that value is, and we'll fund your site acquisition based on that amount. And we'll reserve that cash for you so that you can continue through the process to purchase it. At the time you do your and the other grants, you'll ask for site development if you need those. Brian will talk about how we calculate those. If you think you're going to do a multi-level building for your kindergarten classrooms, you'll check those boxes too, and we'll provide all the grants based on those calculations. When you get to fund release, we will true up only the site acquisition grants and the multi-level grant. We won't be doing a re-review of your financial hardship if you still qualify. It's expected to be a quick process. Not a lot will be changing. So there are those 2 things that will true up for your actual site acquisition expenditures. And then lastly, your expenditure report. Similar to what you do for all the other programs we administer, warrants and invoices. We'll ask for basically a ledger sheet of all those. And then at such time you get audited by the local auditors, you would provide them the actual invoices and documentation. So, any questions so far? Okay, Brian will walk you through the calcs and the individual grants.
Good morning, Brian LePasse with OPSC. So I'm picking up on page 11 here in today's handout. So as Michael talked about a little bit, the way we're going to calculate these grants is very similar to just a regular K through 6 classroom. We're going to use the new construction K through 6 grant and also modernization K through 6 grant. Down at the bottom of page 11, you see kind of a couple of simple examples there of what it would just look like for the base grant amounts. And we'll talk about how to add on to those later, but it's pretty straightforward. Nothing that, if you're familiar with our program, it's nothing you haven't seen before. Moving on to page 12, there's a chart at the top here for supplemental grants, and it's showing what has been provided for in the full-day kindergarten statute. So I'll just kind of go through those for retrofit projects. It's just going to be project assistance and fire alarm. And then for new construction projects, site development, site acquisition, the DTSC and hazardous waste that goes along with site acquisition if that's required. Fire alarm and sprinkler, project assistance, and multi-level construction if it's going to be a multi-level facility. As far as the site development goes, it's going to be a little different than what we do for the SFP. For the SFP, there's a site development worksheet with 3 different divisions. For this program, we're just going to give a 35% increase to the base grant amount. We went back and looked at all of our new construction projects over the history of the program, and it was an average of 35%. So that's where that number comes from. So it's going to be a very straightforward review that way for the district and for us, and we think that it's probably going to be appropriate. And then for retrofit projects, we can allow 50-year-old building increase grants, like the per pupil grant increase, but if you do have a 50-year-old building that needs utilities, we'll give you 15% of the base grant for that. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about, in a little bit, I'm going to talk a little bit more about any potential site development as part of a retrofit project as well. Let's see, site acquisition, like Michael said, it's very similar to SFP. The proposed site must be adjacent to the current existing site that you're adding to. And we're going to prorate the funding. And again, a little bit later, I'll have an example of that, and I'll explain what that means. But basically, it's the same as SFP, the same requirements, the same documentation. If the district has final CDE site approval, it's going to be the lesser of the actual or the appraised value of the site. And then the 2% or the site other grant is available. Relocation assistance if needed, DTSC, hazardous waste, so it's very similar. If you haven't received your approval yet, I think Michael just talked about this. It'll be based on a preliminary appraisal. You can still get those other grants, and then we'll actually true those up when it's time to submit the full funding application. Let's see. So at the center there of page 13, there's a little bit more of a complex calculation example of what a true project might look like. Example 1, it's a 2-classroom new construction project, and it shows the base grant, the site development add-on, fire alarm and sprinkler and project assistance, and kind of how that would look. So it's about a $1.6 million total project cost for a 2-classroom project. And then a retrofit project for 2-classroom retrofit would come in a little under $400,000. That doesn't include any site development, though, and I'm going to get into that again in just a minute. So along with these grants that were specifically provided in the full-day kindergarten statute, there's some that aren't in there, and we have a little list here. Relocation is actually listed on there, but we've gone back and kind of taken a look at that one, and relocation will be allowed. So we forgot to remove that from our last handout, but that will be allowed. But 50-year-old buildings, I said that earlier, the per pupil grant increase amount is not provided for. New school project is not provided for. And then urban security, these are some of the ones that you'll see the most in SFP projects that we don't have for this program. Urban security impacted site, small size project, geographic, and access compliance and fire code. If there's anyone out there that can see a nexus in the statute, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that, but we didn't see it. So it's pretty clear to us we can't provide those, but like I said, if you have some ideas about that and want to discuss it with us, we're open to that. So this program, we're going to implement, or we're proposing to implement priority points for it because we anticipate there might be a need for ranking the applications. We're hoping at least that we'll be oversubscribed. It'll be a popular program. So there's 2 categories for priority points. Each one's worth 40 points. The first one is if you're financial hardship, and no matter what level of financial hardship you are, you'll get 40 points for that. So that's half of the points. The other half is based on underserved communities and their free and reduced price meal percentages. It's a district-wide look at the free and reduced lunch percentage, not a site-specific look. So it starts at 60%. If the district has 60% of their students, that's 4 points. And then it goes all the way up on a sliding scale to 100% would be 40 points. And so those will be added together to determine your priority point score. I'll talk about tiebreakers here. I'm on page 15 now, by the way. I've been kind of speeding through this thing. I'll talk about tiebreakers more in a minute. For the fund release, Michael alluded to this a little bit, but basically there's 3 categories. The first one would be design, and then just getting your site other fee. This will be an automatic release, and you don't need to send us a fund release request form. I believe it's going to be a 7002. We don't have it published yet, but that's what the form's going to be called. You will need to send in a grant agreement, though. And so as soon as we get that grant agreement, we'll release those funds to you. For a site grant, after your apportionment and upon receipt of a grant agreement and a fund release request. We'll release those. And then for the full adjusting grant, it's like a standard SFP project. We need a grant agreement, the fund release request form, and all the associated documentation that goes along with that. So let's see. I think that's about it for the recap of the former item. One last thing to mention, or a couple things. We are working on a list of eligible and ineligible expenditures that will be in the grant agreement. We plan on sending that out soon. We're finalizing that, so we're going to have that very soon. And the audits for this program will be just like Proposition 51 projects. There'll be a local audit. That the auditor will be hired by the school district. Okay, so that was our presentation back on August 28th, and now I'm jumping to the beginning of the handout today. So back to page 1, and I'm going to read through some of the questions that we received at that meeting, and then what our proposed solutions for those questions are. So jumping right in on the bottom of page 1, there was a question that, will the program provide additional funding for playgrounds, added restrooms, parking, drop-off areas, food service, etc.? The thought being that there might need to be additional spaces for those things because you're going to have full day, not AM and PM. And the answer is yes. That's what that 35% is for. We are going to add that 35% to the retrofit grants, as well as having it. We already had it for new construction, but we're going to add it to the retrofit grants as well. So the retrofit grant could actually get potentially 35% for site development, and then another 15% if it's a 50-year-old building that needs utility upgrades. Moving on to page 2. Will the funding be retroactive? Is there any availability for retroactive funding? The answer is yes, but we aren't able to go back past the inception date of the full-day kindergarten program, which was June 27th of this year. So as long as those expenditures were made after that date, you can be reimbursed. Before that, the program didn't exist, so we wouldn't be able to do that. Next question is there a minimum length of time that a district funded under the full-day kindergarten facility grant program must offer full-day kindergarten? The statute doesn't stipulate anything, but you should be prepared to demonstrate during your audit that you're operating a full-day kindergarten in that facility. It doesn't say how long it has to be there. There's not like a 10 or 15, 20 year, anything like that. So the audit will check for it, though. Is there information available to help determine if existing kindergarten classrooms met design requirements at the time they were built? OPSC and CDE will work with you on that, on determining that. CDE may be able to help to see if those facilities were out of compliance or not at the time that they were built or retrofitted. But the district is going to be certifying that the facilities don't currently meet those requirements. So if you're unable to certify that or you're not sure, we can help you out with that, and CDE is going to be able to assist with that as well. Can districts submit applications on behalf of charter schools? Yes, as long as they're in Field Act compliant buildings and also Title V compliant buildings, and they have to be district owned. So as long as those conditions are met, they can apply for charter schools. It also has to be a school district that offers kindergarten, so it couldn't be a high school district. It'd have to be like an elementary or a unified district. We talked about this a minute ago. There was a question. They wanted to clarify if free and reduced lunch preference points would be if the percentage would be based on the site where you're building the facility, or if it'd be on the district, and it is going to be district wide for that. We have a link there where you can check that as well. There's a link and instructions provided on how to find that out, and it'll just be whatever's the current percentage when you apply to the program. That's the percentage that will apply to the project. Down at the bottom of page 2, does the program provide funding for transitional kindergarten facilities? Yes, transitional kindergarten is basically viewed as the same as a regular kindergarten grade level, but when you're providing facilities for them, you actually combine the enrollment together. So, for example, if you had 12 transitional kindergartners and you had 12 regular kindergartners, that would just be one classroom worth of students, not two. We wouldn't separate them out like we would for different grade levels, so we would combine them. Moving on to page 3. This question is basically if you were to reconfigure a space that's not currently a kindergarten classroom into a full-day kindergarten classroom, could you use your grants from the program to replace that other space, whatever it may be, a classroom or an admin or whatever it was? We don't think so. The statute is clearly to provide funding for new or retrofit full-day kindergarten classrooms. So if you're doing something else with it, we don't think that we could use the funds for that. Do savings need to be returned? We're proposing to adopt the same model we use for the school facility program. So in that model, financial hardship projects need to return their savings. If you're not a financial hardship district, you can keep them for other priority or other high priority capital outlay projects in the district. So we're proposing just to keep that same model for this program. And then at the center there of page 3, we have an example of what it would look like if we prorate the site acquisition. So we talked to the Department of Education. They allow 0.3 acres per kindergarten classroom, and then for each additional one, you multiply that 0.3 by 80%. So there's a chart there that shows for one classroom 0.3 acres, two classrooms 0.5, and so on. Those acreage amounts are to account for the classroom itself, any necessary paved or turf area around the classroom, a playground and lunch area, as well as parking and drop-off. So all those things are included in that calculation. And there's an example there that shows if you're building a two-classroom project, and for two classrooms you're eligible for a half an acre. But if you were to purchase 1.7 acres, for example, that's how the prorate would look there. We would multiply or divide the acres acquired by the amount that's eligible, and then multiply that amount times the grant. We can help you with that too. If you're having trouble calculating it when you fill your application out, just give us a call. And then we had a question of why it's necessary to adjust new construction eligibility when you're not adding capacity to the site. You're kind of expanding your program. The statute that covers that part of the program is very clear. There's no exception for this program or any other reason. So we're bound by that to make an adjustment. And so you will have to make an adjustment if you add a classroom. Last page, page 4. Can a new construction project replace excluded portables? No. SFP provides for the replacement of excluded portables, but the statute that created this program, 17375, is not in the SFP. So we look at it as being different, but if you do have kindergartners in an excluded portable, you can qualify to build a new facility for them. So you can build a full-day kindergarten facility and get them out of that excluded portable. We just can't replace the actual portable itself. And then the last question was, can a full-day kindergarten facilities grant program application be combined with an SFP project? The statute doesn't say it can't be, so we think it can. We just want to make sure we're very careful about delineating the work in the plans and also the expenditures between the two programs so that we're clearly accounting for each program separately. This would be similar to if you had, like in the past, say like an overcrowded relief grant program and a new construction at the same site. You have to be very careful to separate them and keep track of them separately, but you can't combine them. Okay, so lastly, we said we'd bring back tiebreakers, and we have a couple of proposed ideas here down at the or in the middle of page 4. The first tiebreaker, if they have the same priority points, so if two applications have the same amount of points, the first tiebreaker we're proposing to have would be if the district that is applying has not previously received funding under the program, under the full-day kindergarten program, either in a prior round or the same round that we're in now. And then the next level of tiebreaker would be projects that have a lower district contribution. We feel like that's in the spirit of the program. The whole idea of this program was to kind of help out districts that are unable to provide these facilities for themselves. And so we thought it made sense. And then if those two can't, if everything's the same still, we would do a lottery system. And again, if anybody has any ideas about a better way to do this or any other ideas about tiebreakers, we'd be happy to hear them. Those are the ones that we came up with, though. And I think that's it. That's the new information we have. We would love to have any questions that you might have or feedback. Yes?
Point of clar- It's on? Point of clarification, these projects don't have to participate in the priority and funding round?
That's correct. They do not.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't. We have the cash available, so we don't have to wait for bond sales. And so, yeah, we were able to, as long as you meet the requirements for fund release, we can release the cash immediately.
And then on the excluded portables question, it's kind of a moot point because you can't use these dollars for portables to put a new portable on a campus anyways, right?
Basically, that's true. Yeah, we just wanted to clarify. It was a question we had, so we wanted to make sure that we
Okay.
addressed it. Yeah, but you're right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, hopefully it's clear. We're very excited about this program. We're hoping it's popular. We think it fills a need that there is a need out there for them. So we're hoping that people take advantage of it and come in and apply. Again, we have a brand new team for it, and we're all very excited to get this thing rolling. We're envisioning taking regulations to the October State Allocation Board meeting. We're going to have one more stakeholder meeting to finalize, and we're going to present regulations at that meeting, as well as I think our forms and that list of eligible and ineligible expenditures. We're getting to the finish line there on that stuff. I don't know if have we scheduled that yet? I don't think we have. Okay, so yeah, we're aiming for the first week of October for that meeting. And then the program will begin accepting applications in January. So we're moving pretty quick. And that's why we implemented the options to come into the program if you don't have DSA approval already. There's ways to get in early.
The start date for the first round?
Yeah,
Was
it
it January
is
2nd till the 23rd, you said?
January 2nd to January 31st.
January 2nd to January 31st, yeah.
It's depending on when we get the regulations approved, though.
So that's not
It's not set in stone, but if we can get it approved on January 1st, it would enter that date.
Michael was saying it's going to maybe depend a little bit on when we get our regulations approved, but we're hoping that they'll be approved by January 2nd, and we're able to start accepting applications right away. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so for those of you that are here, and for anybody that's watching this, we're available. If you would like to discuss this, give us a call or send us an email. If you have any comments or feedback, we'd love to hear it. And again, we're going to have another stakeholder meeting. I think it's going to be in Sacramento.
Did you say it's being webcast and
It's not a live webcast, but we're going to post it on our website.
this also?
This meeting, yes.
All right.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be at the normal area of our website.
And just to follow up, so for the third meeting, we intend to webcast that one live. We just didn't have capabilities in this building. Our homepage? It should be www.dgs.ca.gov, then /OPSC, I believe. The question was if anybody had any additional thoughts of ways to break ties beyond what we had published here. We know the priority of the program was those that were financial hardship or areas that served high populations of free and reduced lunch meals. So we thought that was one idea, but we're totally open to suggestions. There's a lot of ways to break the ties. No concerns. All right. I think that's it. Huh? So again, once Once again, thank you for your attendance. This webcast we will put live on our recording on our website early next week. So if you have any follow-ups, again, like Brian mentioned, our email addresses and phone numbers are on the webpage. If you go to our directory of services, you'll also find the new team's phone numbers also has contact information. All right. Thank you again. Appreciate it.